This video today is brought to you by a question that came in from one of my subscribers. I get questions a lot, and oftentimes the videos that I do will cover many of the questions that I get in some way, especially my longer videos. I address a lot of times when I'm reading comments or getting emails with questions, I'll incorporate throughout my talk. Do you like that? I'll incorporate, my thoughts on some of the things. But anyway, this particular question comes in from Jim Watkins, and I'm not going to quote the question exactly because it was kind of a long email, but basically, how have I handled having wasted 48 years of my life being a Christian, serving an imaginary, made up fictional God? And, how have I handled the regret and the sorrow of, of wasting so many years? So I'm going to talk about that real quick. Hi, my name's Timmy Gibson. Welcome to my channel. I'm a former fundamental evangelical tongue talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. I served for 30 years as a man of the cloth and spent 48 years as an evangelical Christian. And now I would say I am atheist. So now I may have mentioned, quickly in other videos, uh, I don't believe in regrets. And let me explain further. So there is a great book that I would recommend. I went over to my shelf to find the book, and I can't find it. Sometimes after I finish reading a book, I'll give it away to someone else. But it's a great book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. Now I know Eckhart Tolle, I think, is um, somewhat of a spiritual guru, I think. Um, but as you know, my whole channel is really combating the deceptions, the lies, the immorality of evangelical Christianity. People that take the Bible literally to be true, like literally written by God, right? Literally, it's God's word. It's not. So yeah. So I don't have. I'm not. I wouldn't call myself spiritual, and I hesitate just a little bit because there are certain practices that are somewhat spiritual that I do engage in, meditation, positive affirmation. I believe in really trying to say good things to myself, about myself, to others. I try to be positive and encouraging in my words, um, especially with, my kids and my wife and of course anybody I meet. I mean, obviously, here I say a lot of different things in regards to my previous life of being a pastor. Um, but yeah, there's some spiritual practices that you don't need a God for. I don't believe in God. So like, for me, meditation or even prayer for me has nothing to do with God. It just doesn't. And I mean, cuss and discuss below. Tell me your own thoughts. So again, I hesitate to say I'm spiritual, not religious, because that usually means you believe in a God and whatever. Even if like the universe is your God, whatever. Personally, I don't have a problem with people that think that way. I mean, people are free to think how. I don't care how people think. They can think whatever they want to think. This is just my channel telling you my story of coming to terms with realizing or coming to understand that Christianity was a man-made religion, and it's not true. It's not. It's fictional. It's a mythology, and I have a lot of videos I've done talking about how I kind of came to that understanding. Uh, it was quite a journey. But anyway, back to Jim's question about how I have handled uh, uh, those wasted years, those 48 wasted years. A couple things. One, I don't believe in regret. Um, That doesn't mean I don't believe in learning from my past. That's different. Regrets to me, it's where you take something from your past that you're not proud of and you bring it into your current reality to mess up your current present life. I just don't believe in that. I just don't believe in living today with regrets of things done in the past that I can't change. All I can do is change my behavior now. I can't change the past. You can't change the past. No one can change the past, right? Now, I can make changes now and hopefully affect in a positive way my future. Uh, so I believe in learning from my past. I just don't believe in living a life of regrets. So I guess on one thing to address Jim's question, I just don't believe in regrets. I just like, what's that do for me, right? Like, if I was to just bemoan the 48 years that I spent believing in a mythical God, and all that the years that I wasted uh, being a servant in the church, I could have been doing something else, right? Making money, building a future, and on solid ground, on reality rather than on mythology. So yeah, I mean, I just can't see how that would. I'm glad that I'm not wired that way, or I've just trained myself through books and things that I've read, on like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That book just talks about, the past is gone, right? It doesn't exist anymore. The future also doesn't exist until I'm there, right? So the future, it's kind of like the future doesn't exist and the past doesn't exist. All that exists is right now. Now, I know we can get into a quantum physics and a kind of a conversation. Everything is just right now. There is no past, there is no future, there is only right now. I mean, we could get into all that. I can't see the benefit in doing that right now. Those things are fun. I love, reading those kinds of things and studying on those kinds of things. And I do resonate with all we have is now. Like, this is it. So if there's something from my past that I don't like or wish I could change, well, I can't. Like, I can't change the past, but I can change now and not repeat the mistakes of the past. That I do believe in. And that is something that does resonate with me. So really, how I have dealt with having wasted 48 years of my life, I would also say I don't really look at that as wasted, because I'm utilizing those 48 years of being an evangelical Christian here on this channel. I wouldn't be able to have the perspective that I have right now. I wouldn't have the experience that I have to share with you. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have all the stuff that I have from 48 years being in that world. It's like Grayson Hawk, the guy I interviewed, the science guy. And he said, it's like you got a superpower. And I just love that. It stuck with me, and I get, oh yeah, I guess I do. I mean, I guess I do have a superpower, because the 48 years that I spent in evangelical Christianity are all in here. Like, it's in here. I remember what I thought. I remember what I believed. I remember my worldview, my perspective. And in all intents and purposes, much of that is still evolving. There are things, probably, like, even when I was talking to Grayson, who's always been an atheist his whole life, and even though he's younger than I am, uh, that's an experience I don't have. In fact, I've only been an atheist for probably an atheist for 2 or 3 years. Started deconstructing about 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, I was just a progressive Christian. I was an edgy Christian, and then it just kept progressing, and from there. So it's only been the last couple 2 3 years where I've really like owned it and said, yeah, I'm atheist, and that's what it is. I think I did a video about that. Maybe I'll link it down below, where I talk about how I struggled to call myself atheist. I struggled to do it because it just sounds so. It doesn't now, clearly, but in the beginning it just sounded so bad, so wrong, so evil, right? It just doesn't sound right. But that's because I had 48 years of evangelical Christianity brainwashing to get me to think certain things and view certain things a certain way, and yeah, I mean, I'm still working through a lot of that. I'm sure there's even certain perspectives that I may have even now that are it's a sprinkling of an evangelical deep-seated mindset. And like I said, one of the most recent ones that I'm even aware of is just being able to call myself an atheist when I've been an atheist for longer than I've admitted. So I've only admitted it for the last couple years. But truthfully, I was probably atheist probably 5 years ago. So I would say about 2 years after I began my deconstruction, I probably would have been atheist technically. But even that, I couldn't say atheist, so I said agnostic. and then, finally, if anybody you've been following my story on my channel here, you've experienced much of that progression where I didn't even say in my early videos that I am an atheist. It took me a minute, even after coming out of the closet on YouTube about all this. It took me a minute. So back to Jim's question. How have I handled all the grief and the sorrow? Well, one is, I did go to therapy and had a good counselor where I kind of really worked through all that stuff. And, there's several things that I'll probably do a separate video about this, but there are, like I said, I don't believe in God. I'm atheist, yet I still believe in the power of words. I believe in the power of positive affirmation. I believe in the power of positive thinking. I believe in the power of meditation, aka or prayer, whatever you want to call it. But again, I don't believe in even God. I don't believe in God. I don't believe. So it's like meditation for me, or even prayer, is not about me praying to any kind of a divinity. Prayer to me is more like a conversation with whoever, like, if my wife and I are talking and she wants to pray about something some event that she's excited about or wanting to go well. Well, clearly, I'm not praying to a God. I don't believe in a God. There's no God listening to your prayers. But I know she's going to hear my words. I'm going to hear my words, right? We're going to hear my words of positive encouragement, for whatever event or whatever's coming that she wants prayer over. So I know that's for some people just hard to understand, and maybe for an atheist, like an atheist who's always been an atheist, they just can't really wrap their minds around that. And that's okay. I don't think everybody has to be able to wrap their minds around what anybody thinks about anything. And, as long as it makes sense to you, and it seems to be helpful to you, then, like if it doesn't bring anybody harm, then I don't know, what's the harm, right? So meditate. I mean, Sam Harris talks. Matter of fact, Sam Harris, doesn't he have a meditation app? I think he has a meditation app. There's a lot of power to, deep breathing, what they call breath work, psychedelic experiences, which I have yet to do. Not opposed to it. I just haven't done. I was raised Christian, y'all. I haven't done that many things in my life. I'm naive. I mean, you can't even imagine. That's why it's funny. People always ask me, "Do you cuss?" Because I don't cuss on my channel very often, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I cuss like a sailor." I just don't do it on the YouTubes here because I don't want to be demonetized. Um, so, and, I want it to be family friendly. But yeah, of course, I went for years and years and years and years and didn't cuss, right? I didn't do nothing. Uh, because you're trying to live that trying to live that life, Anyway, so yeah, I don't believe in regrets. I believe in learning from my past. That I can't really worry about the future per se, outside of just doing whatever I can now to set myself up for a good future. And I guess it just I would probably say it's just the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, really had a deep impact on me. And and again, I know it's kind of a spiritual book, but F that part. You don't have to believe in a divinity. You don't have to believe in mystical things, because I don't believe in any of that as it relates to everything that I said I believed in. Positive affirmation, positive thinking, all those meditation, prayer, all that stuff. To me, there is no God needed for any of that. So I don't need a God for any of that. And there doesn't need to be anything mystical about any of that. In my mind, it just doesn't. So that's why I, always hesitate to say I'm spiritual, because usually people take that as, oh, he's religious but not maybe fundamental, or he believes in ghosts and goblins and all that stuff. And it's just that I just don't believe in that. uh, but but there are spiritual practices that I align with, and I don't need a God, or nor do I need to believe in a God, even in a God, to practice those things that I think are very helpful in our just natural life. I mean, deep breathing, hello, like breath work is just powerful. It's like yoga. I know for some people, yoga is spiritual. For I don't really do yoga all that much. I mean, I've done it. Well, clearly, I don't believe in God, so it's not spiritual for me. It's stretching, right? I mean, that's all it is, right? So, those of you that cuss and discuss down below. Let me know your thoughts and what you've done to help you work through feeling like you've wasted your life. I just don't find that thinking helpful. And for whatever reason, I'm able to just not grovel over spilt milk, if you will. And again, I'm not casting shade on anyone that does deal with that. I get it. I understand it. I had a minute of that, if you will, in the very beginning of my deconstruction process. It was extremely difficult. I would be lying to say that it was easy. It wasn't easy. It was very hard for a lot of reasons. Uh, but yeah, my whether I just don't think my brain works that way. Where I have a friend that is just riddled with guilt. He's actually still Christian. He's a Christian, and he's just riddled with guilt over some of the sins that he's committed, which really is shocking to me, honestly, because like in the Christian world, they believe that, confess your sins to God and he'll forgive you. So, I've often, when I've spoke to my friend, I'm like, dude, don't you believe that Jesus takes away your sin and casts it away as far as the east is from the west, never to be remembered against you anymore? Like, why do you have guilt or shame or regrets? Like, your God just washes it all away. So I don't even get that at all. You know what I mean? As a Christian, that doesn't even make sense to me. how they would deal with regret. Like, just ask God to forgive you, believe that to be true, even though it's not. You know what I mean? But I think the principle of it is still true, that when I've made a mistake in my past, I recognize it. If I need to ask forgiveness from someone, or apologize or do whatever, of course do that. And then I look inward and think, how can I change? How can I learn from this time wasted to not waste anymore? And that to me is another piece I think that is important to remember. You don't give your past power over your present, because now I'm not just going to have regrets over over the years that I wasted in believing a myth, but I'm going to ruin my present with that regret. Then as I go into the future even further, I still have things to regret, because I'm still allowing the regret from the wasted years to ruin my more recent past. You know what I'm saying? Are you following me there? So yeah, I don't, that just doesn't reconcile, that doesn't make any sense in my brain. It just doesn't. So that would be my advice. Read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. Maybe I'll think of some other books that are helpful too. Throw away, what do they say? Eat the hay, throw out the stubble. Is that throw the sticks? Eat the hay, throw out the sticks, whatever that is. Like the spiritual universe, God, all that kind of stuff that might be in The Power of Now. It's been a minute since I've read it. I mean, I read it like 7 years ago. And I think it's available on audio, actually. I think here on YouTube, actually. In fact, maybe I'll see if it is, and I'll put it down in the description of this video, maybe, if I find it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Cuss and discuss. Tell your own story. Let me know if that helps. If that gives any, some thoughts. I don't have a magic formula to not have regrets. It's a practice. It's something that I had to intentionally work on, and just decide. I'm not going to let my past dictate my present in a bad way. Whenever I can learn from my past, make the changes, and be a better human. I don't know. What do you guys think? Cuss, discuss, like, share, do all the stuff. Don't forget, have a Facebook group for those going through the deconstruction process. If you're agnostic, atheist, even if you're spiritual, not religious, you would be welcome in there, as long as you're not going to try to get everybody saved. That's the only thing that's just not going to work. We'll boot you out. All right, guys. Peace.